I honestly am not sure if today is day 14 or day 15 of Ramadan, as I'm flowing, I'm just flowing. And something came to mind that I wanted to share connected to the subject of realizing that you're enough. And knowing that or realizing that you're enough doesn't necessitate that you think you're never in need of improving or that there's no room for self development. No. But in my case, it means that I realize that everything that I've already learned, everything that I've lived, all of the choices that I've made and the results from those choices and the lessons that have therefore from that been derived, how all of that is so much. If I were to sit and really ponder, as I have at times, my life and what I've experienced and what I've learned and what I've been taught, that would take me in and of itself another maybe half of a lifetime to compile all of those lessons. But what we do is we distill. We take a lot and we look at patterns and then we distill that down into something that is potent. I recently realized that I had this belief that if it wasn't difficult to do, then it wasn't worthy. If it didn't take a lot of energy and a lot of effort, a lot of sweat, blood, and tears, then it must not be worthy. It must not be worthy of giving. It must not be worthy of packaging. It must not be worthy of sharing. And I'm letting go of that. I'm letting go of that limiting belief. And I'm coming more into the realization that my presence as it is enough. My touch, my intentional touch, it is enough. The culmination of my energy and my aura and who I am and everything that comes with this embodiment that is known as Hasna, Nazaha, Abdul Majid, Noel, or Noel. It's enough. It's enough to show up and have something great to present and great to offer, because my entire life has been a training. My entire life has been a practice. That's why recently I was feeling so much gratitude for my parents, the type of parents that I had, who did not just tell me, you do this, and they did the opposite. I can't ever say that about my parents. I can say that they are people of God. They are people who constantly were making decisions that were not based on material gain, worldly desire, but thinking about their soul and thinking about my soul and thinking about the preparation for not only what is of this dimension, but what is to come. I can say that they were not only telling me to get out of bed at a certain time in the morning or waking me up lovingly at a certain time of the morning, but they themselves, every single morning in our household before dawn, they woke up to do what? To connect with their Creator, to connect with their Lord, to pray, to supplicate. And that was the example that I grew up with from the time I was born. This was a training. This was a training that was impressed upon my soul and that made a difference in the type of person that I am and what I strive for. So yeah, there's no question that my choices have been impacted by what I was exposed to growing up. And that what I lean toward, that there definitely has been great influence from that side, from the communities that I grew up with. Does it mean that I was not exposed to other communities? Does it mean that I wasn't aware of what else was out there? No, I definitely was. And leaving and traveling a bit on my own for a few years in places that were not chosen by my parents, or in places that were not necessarily for the purpose of religious growth and awareness and spirituality, it has definitely expanded me in ways that I would not previously have been. But there's this recognition that all of those years of learning and studying, and as a child, training in different sciences, and as a teenager going to study in Damascus and being with a group of women who were focused 100% on spiritual soul purification, and then going back to the States, and then going to Yemen and living in Yemen until the war. And the reason why I was in Yemen also was because I was inspired by the lifestyle that I saw of certain expats who had moved to Damascus to learn Arabic, to work on their knowledge, to study, because seeking of divinely aligned knowledge is something that is highly, highly recommended, and we're called to do that in Islam. So the first verse of the Quran that was revealed was Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read by the name of your Lord, or in the name of your Lord who created. Created what? خلق الإنسان من علق. Created mankind from this clot of blood, and so on. So Allah is reminding us of our origins in that particular chapter, which perhaps I'll share at another time. So there's that recognition also more recently of the consistency of my life, that there's patterns, and that someone who knew me from the time I was 10 years old, as opposed to even 15 years old, as opposed to 20 years old, they would say, oh, yeah, like Hasna always had this gravitation toward truth, or Hasna always loved to expand outside of what was given to her, or Hasna always loved to bring the divine remembrance into our connections and our gatherings, even when we were teenagers. So I didn't, for example, just show up one day and like have a persona that I decided I like this persona and I want to hold myself in a certain persona. No, there's certain aspects that have always been, and I believe and I pray always will be. And yet within that, within having that foundation, so you have this foundation, and then from there you're going out here, going out there, going out there, going out there, but deeply rooted in the awareness that this life is not all there is. Deeply rooted in the awareness that my soul is truly who I am, and not just this outer, which is why I've had to come into balance with some of my identifying of myself and how I identify with my body. Because whether I was more fit, or whether I was less fit, or whether I'm smaller, or whether I'm bigger, or whether my skin is clear or it's not, it's like I'm the same being. So if you feel me, you feel me. And if you're meant to feel me, you're going to feel me regardless of the outer manifestations. And that's what I'm calling in. The one who will feel me more than most, perhaps. And who I will feel, that one. I will feel him. When we're talking about partnership, or I should say romantic partnership, where there's love, where there's alignment, where there's mutual support. So I'm definitely at a stage in my life where I feel that there's a lot of awarenesses that even 5, 6 years ago, it would have been very different if I had been with a life partner than for now. So I'm grateful for this time. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this time that I've had to deepen in my own awareness of what I desire in this life and seeing a bit of what else is out there and sprinkles of experiences so that I can be rooted in the offerings, whatever those offerings are to be. But for me, these offerings would be centered around bringing and renewing and reviving awareness of our Creator, the names, the attributes, the qualities, and the wisdoms that come when we are divinely aligned, the wisdoms that are for all of humanity, that are and have been revealed. So I'm calling that partnership in, and I'm calling in also community where we pray together, where we fast together. The same as I mentioned in, I think, maybe my last post, where we're praying together, not just going through the motions, truly surrendering, where we're in divine remembrance, saying statements. Some of you call them mantra, but the Islamic form is dhikr, the remembrance, saying those statements together, where we're fasting together, where we're going into nature together, where us as sisters specifically are supporting each other, are able to be vulnerable and know that our vulnerability will not be used against us, and know that our weaknesses do not mean that we in and of ourselves in our entirety that we are weak. And that support of sisterhood is very important. The support that is not only of online, but also in speaking, also in feeling, also in arms being held, touch. We need platonic touch. We need touch that's not always connected to something else or more. The nature connection is very important. While I appreciate this garden and trees and a forest in the background and all of that, I love when I'm in places like less, and I'm in, or even beyond, like places where there's not a lot of people around. There's a lot more nature than people. And yet there are people who are living in these spaces, and they love to be in these spaces because they know that they get so much more with what seems to be less. I love that. And I know that this time here has been what it is. It's been beautiful in its own way. And I would love to keep Bali as a base, like one of my bases, or Indonesia even as one of my bases. But I also see and I also feel the desire to be in the type of community that shares a lot more similar awarenesses, and where my skills and my gifts are truly needed and valued without my necessarily having to advertise. But that's something also that I realize I have to overcome. This is definitely like a diary entry right now for anyone who's watching. I didn't know it was going to go in this direction. But yeah, there's this need to cultivate more of an announcement. This is what I notice, where I think I'm not so used to that. But the reality is that anytime you have something to offer, you have to let people know, this is what I have to offer. And I think in my life, I just was used to people already kind of knowing And then they just ask, like, Hasna, come give a talk here. Or Hasna, can you help us with this? Or Hasna, you know? So that's also what has been a bit different in these spaces is there's this, you have to kind of announce yourself. Like, this is what I have to offer, world. Here it is. Here's my event or here's my gathering, and come to my house at this time and we're going to do this. And I really need to get better with that. I really, really do. I truly do. And I intend to. So, if you made it this far, you must either really love me or maybe the opposite. I don't know. But the point is, if you did make it this far, please let me know. And what I pray that one would get out of this is that in our entire life, the lives that we live, there are themes and there are lessons and there are awarenesses. And what you have to offer and what you have to give, as it is, as it is even easy for you, that may be the key to what you're meant to offer in this life. What are you able to give with ease? I'm not saying that there should never be any level of sacrifice in our giving, but it's almost like a natural sacrifice. It's almost something that maybe other people may find heavy on them, but it's easy for you. One of those things for me is giving support in various ways, listening to people's stories, hearing what's going on with them, identifying the themes and the patterns, also bringing the awareness as to what are some of the limiting beliefs, how can we work on those limiting beliefs, bringing affirmations in place of that, and giving hands-on support as well, because there's something to the energetic support that comes with touch that's different than if it's simply in this format. We feel each other in a way that's more than when we're, I believe, than when we're in this format. Those who are truly potent, you will feel them through this type of format as well, but in person is much better. So right now I'm going through a few matters. There's some mini tests that I'm going through, and I've just learned I've learned lessons in not trusting just anyone just because someone says that someone's good at something. That is not enough. I need to feel for ourselves, because one person's recommendation could be your nightmare. That is a fact. That is a fact. So yeah, don't know what day it is. Also, what I wanted to say is this Ramadan has been a Liquidarian Ramadan. But to be more accurate, I would say Liquidarian based. I have had a couple of days where, like yesterday, I was very tired and I did not feel like juicing. I did not feel like blending. And all I had energy to do was to drink the coconut water that I had and chew and blend the watermelon in my mouth with my teeth and saliva and tongue and swallow. I mean, really, that's honestly, I didn't have the energy or desire to use a machine. My friend called me and bumped me off. But yeah, I didn't have the energy or desire to use a machine. And I'm going to be gentle with myself because already I set a high bar. Ramadan, every year, probably for 6 years or so, I have desired, maybe even longer, I have desired to have a fully raw Ramadan, a raw Ramadan. That had been a strong desire of mine. And as I had mentioned before, I would start off with the foods that were raw, and I would quickly go into vegetables that were cooked. Then I want it with rice and sauce, and then it just starts getting to more and more density and into my weakness of pizza. Yes, that's my thing, pizza, among other things. But pizza is the star. But now we're already halfway done. We're already halfway through, and I've still maintained raw. Majority has been all liquid. There were some smoothies, which is also considered liquid. Anything in a where it's mostly in a liquidy, flowy form, that is still under liquidarian. And yeah, chewing it is not liquidarian. But like I said, when I look at all the people who have excelled, they do something and they step down, and then they go again and they step down, and it's just a constant doing, trying. I don't really like the term try, but you understand what I mean. Making an effort, and sometimes you meet the highest of that effort, but either way, inshallah, God willing, this Ramadan is going to be a fully raw Ramadan, and I've never been able to do that before, and I believe that I will be extremely pleased with myself when that happens. And I may decide to celebrate with a soul bowl. I don't know. Soul bowl is this amazing nutrient packed bowl that I love to get from Seeds of Life, a place here in Ubud. We shall see. We shall see. But either way, I'm gonna go and thank you. Thank you for all of you who have sent me love and support, sometimes energetically. I pray that I just continue on this path of releasing that which does not serve me, so that I can be of the greatest service. Lots of love, peace, and blessings.